This is a special episode of the I Hate Soccer podcast. For a while now, I've hoped that a club would reach out and contact me about maybe partnering or working with them and doing multiple episodes to really highlight what their club is doing. And the Michigan Jaguars did just that. Every third Thursday of each month, there will be a new episode of the I Hate Soccer JAGS Show or the Jaguars Show. This will be on our normal feed, just an additional episode each month. So if you love the I Hate Soccer podcast, instead of getting 4 episodes a month, now you'll get 5 episodes a month. Nothing else is going to change on the normal Monday upload, but every third Thursday of each month, expect a new Jaguars show. Thanks for watching.
I hate soccer.
One episode per month for a year.
Sure.
of guys like you and everything.
Sure.
And I mean, where do we begin? I mean, with you, because you graduated high school in 2004.
Yeah, dude, I'm getting older. By the way, are we recording now?
Yes.
Okay, we're live. Okay.
We're already live. Sorry.
Got you. That's okay.
That's how I start.
That's okay.
I don't do an intro or anything like that. Dude, it's just a conversation.
Roll.
So you graduated high school in 2004. I graduated high school in 2003.
So I'm 40 this year. So you probably already turned.
I'm 41.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
I mean,
what an era though. Let's just say that. It's a good era, man.
I mean, we can get into that about how just different things are, and in terms of you went to school at Mason.
That's right.
And then your club experience, and then your walk-on experience at OU.
Yes.
Do you think, this is where I want to start.
Sure.
Do you think in today's college game that the red shirt story or not the red shirt, but the walk-on? Were you a walk-on?
I was, yeah.
Do you think that can exist today?
So this is my first year coaching, which I don't know if everyone knows that that's listening, but I just retired from playing. So I'm new to the landscape of college recruiting. It's changed a lot with the portal.
Right.
It's changed a lot. And I think it makes it more, kind of the late bloomer stories I think are happening more and more because, less heralded, going in as freshmen, starting and playing for 4 years. Now there's these alternative routes because there's so many transfers going on.
Right.
So you go to a JUCO, maybe you develop there. I was a late bloomer. So I didn't make at the time. There was not homegrown. It was just Wolves and Vardar essentially. That's it.
That was it.
There's 2 teams. I didn't make that till I was a junior. So junior in high school, my U17 year. I didn't. My freshman year in high school, I was basically on a city team in Mason.
Yep.
So I hadn't even made. I got let
playing
go
like
from
an
that.
MSPSP.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, Little Caesars or whatever.
No, well, even it was smaller than that. I got let go from the Little Caesars team in Capital Area. And then I came back, made that Capital Area. It was Capital Area.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Capital Area 86, I think we were called 86.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I got let go, and then I came back, made that team. Then I made Vardar, directly after that.
Who was your coach at Vardar? Morris?
Kevin Argue.
But
I know the Lupinics well. Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, I know the Lupinics well. And then, so, I didn't really get in the shop window until I was 17. I didn't really, I redshirted and I didn't play for 2 years. And by the time I started as my first year at Oakland, my first game I started for Oakland, I already won a PDL national championship with the Bucks. So by that point, I was one of the better goalkeepers, I think, in the country, and I had sat for 2 years. So, there's this, too often, again, I'm dealing with this with my players where we're talking about playing time. We're talking about where we are right now, and there's not enough talk about where you're going to be, long-term thinking.
Yeah.
And I look back at my career and I think I was gifted that at some age where even at a young person I could see, okay, it's not where I am today. It's where I'm going to be in 3 years. It's where I'm going to be in 5 years.
And it's patience.
Yes.
And it's knowing that you're still going to develop in college. Whereas some kids, as soon as they commit, they think that, all right, I've made it. And it's like, no,
it's not at all. Yeah, it's not at all. Well, it's, it's kind of cool coaching. So first of all, it's really fun to go back and coach this level. And then there's also a part of me that, is watching things go on. And I'm like, man, it's not anything about this year, this game. It's about what your habits are, where you're going.
Right.
And, the best players at any age group are hardly the best players when, going on. It's just there's this continual growth pattern happening that even if you're at the top, hey, look, you never know. You got to continue to grow. And if you're not one of the top players, like, it doesn't matter. You can still get there.
Right. So you're with the MLS in the homegrown.
Yes.
Who? What age groups?
So I have the 2011 and the 2009. So 15s and 19s.
15s and 19s. 2011s or 15s?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I know.
So I've spent the last 10 years in Buffalo, New York, and I went and what took me out there from Michigan was to work in the NWSL as their goalkeeper trainer with the Western New York Flash before they moved to North Carolina Courage or sold to the Courage or whatnot. And I mean, so that's, and then all I wanted to do with this podcast is have my former college players on to talk about their recruiting process.
Sure.
And it kind of just took off. And then I'm like, if I can grow it to be as big as it has in Buffalo,
sure.
If I go home to Michigan, how much bigger could this be?
Yes.
And now I'm talking to guys like you and everything. So okay, go in. Was Parsons there, or was it always just Pogge?
It was Parsons, and Pogue was
the goalkeeper trainer, second assistant.
Pogue basically Pogue basically recruited me, spotted me. You know,
was that through Vardar, or was
Vardar,
that, or did he already know you through the Bucks and everything?
No, it was through Vardar. I didn't play for the Bucks till I was like,
that's right,
my second year in college. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah. Okay. I'm always under the impression that a soccer player doesn't reach their prime until the age of 24 to 27.
Sure.
And that you just nailed that with being patient and development and looking at where they're going. A goalkeeper doesn't reach their prime, according to the books, is 30, 31.
Sure.
Do you believe that?
You know, I do. And the issue is that goalkeeping is just, to play in games, it's so hard to replicate in training.
Yeah.
And you know, my first pro game, my debut in Norway. So I didn't really make it my first year. I got called. I went back to play with the Bucks. I was with Salt Lake. I went on trials in Norway. Didn't make the team. I didn't make a now defunct Real Maryland. And then I went back, played with the Bucks, which was kind of like a disappointing start to my pro career. Then Charleston Battery called me in like late July. I was like, hey, we need you to come in. So I was there for like the rest of the season. And then I had decided to backpack through England and Norway to get my first team. So I was cold calling teams basically in Norway with some friends, and it was kind of a wild story. I can get into that more later. But I made my debut, and the whistle blew, and it was like I've never played the game before. I was just like, I almost froze. It was like, the pro game was so much different than the college game. And it was almost like I had to like snap out of it. Like I was like, whoa. You know, it was just, I was very far off as a coming into the pros to what I needed to be.
Yeah.
And then I quickly, got better. But even then, into my 30s, playing in Columbus, you know, in a MLS Cup, going back to Denmark playing, it wasn't until Portland that I so I'm like 250 games into my pro career that I really understood the position. It was like, it's starting to unfold for me. There was like this unfolding of it, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Which is bizarre and wild because I played since I was 8.
Right. And that's kind of like what happened yesterday with the Tottenham goalkeeper. Did you see what happened?
I saw that, dude.
Yeah, 3 goals in the first 15 minutes, and then they pulled him.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, you like, whoa, what is this?
Yeah.
And he's young. He's 22, I think.
So I mean, at some levels, like pulling him, I think can be like the hockey way. It's to protect him, right? But it makes a big scene because what if it turns into 5-6? You know, it's at that moment when you're giving up, you've made 2 mistakes and it's first 10, the game gets extremely difficult.
Right.
You know, now you're not just playing the game, you're playing all these emotions. It gets really hard.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, I don't know that dynamic. I think the sport is brutal. You know, first of all, let's just say that it's a difficult sport. It's especially at that level.
Yeah.
Pro goalkeeping's not for the weak. Let's just be honest. It's not fun. It can be not fun. Let's just say that.
Do you know Luis Robles?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I played against for a long time.
Yeah. We've kind of grown like close and whatnot. And what he's doing with the MLSNext is
Awesome,
phenomenal. And I mean, I spent a lot of time with him at Fest, at MLSNext Fest.
Sure.
And do you think that goalkeepers just have a different personality?
Well, I think goalkeepers like get very deeply the margin of error and like how thin the veil is between success and failure because we live with it all day. So, when you say like people say, "Oh, goalkeepers are crazy," right? Or well, when you're dealing with when you understand like how difficult it is to succeed and how quickly mistakes can happen, it starts to change your preparation. It starts to change the way you take a training session. Because everyone's out there maybe on a Tuesday, random Tuesday in a pro game, and you're training, and it's like a light environment. Well, it's not that light for me because if I'm not in form in the game in the weekend, things can spiral quickly.
Right.
Especially like when you're talking about your family, your mortgage need to be paid.
Yeah.
It compounds.
And the wear and tear on your body compounds as well because you always have to be locked in training and flying around, and we would have to show up an hour before training to train the goalkeepers, and then they have to stay for another hour and a half or 2 hours for the team session. And it's just a different work rate.
Yeah, it's a different energy system, and I've forgotten what it was like to train really hard because as I got older, I just kind of stopped training. I would train
to keep you healthy.
Yeah, you kind of fall off a cliff as far as recovery in your 30s. Where when I left Oakland, I was like just super fit, like insane. When I went on my first trial in Norway, like one of the things we did was we ran the beep test, and one of the reasons I almost signed for that team because I almost won the beep test as a goalie, and like I almost passed out, and like all the Norwegian players it was Stabæk at the time, and they were like, "Whoa!" Like I was just like I was either gonna like. I wanted my first contract so bad. So, but as I got older, you understand too. I think the training changed for me too as I got older because it wasn't training to show people I was good or perform. It was training to prepare for the game, and those are two different things.
Yeah.
And that's a really deep conversation, but it's an important one for sure because it's less about okay, am I going to make this save, or it's more about what do I need to be ready on Saturday. There were so many weeks early in my career where I would be great on a Tuesday and Wednesday and be crap in the game, and then I changed to be, after talking to a lot of really, really good players, it's like, well, why would you train that well? You're a professional. Like your game, the match is the most important thing, which is contrary to what we say in the youth game, which I agree. But it's contrary. This is different things. I hope I'm making sense.
Absolutely.
But you learn very quickly, and I don't think we really learn that much in this country, is that like match day is the most important thing. And talking with a lot of foreign guys and like learning that game and playing 400 games myself professionally, it's like match day is the 90 minutes in the game is the most important thing.
Right.
So my 19s, which I treat like a pro team, or like a college team, right? That's a big message. I say like, look, like this is the most important part of your week. Yeah, are we developing? Absolutely. It's Tuesday important, Wednesday, but this is the match. This is so important. And I think that gets lost a little bit, I think, in our soccer culture. And that's bad, I think.
When did that click? How old do you think you were when that clicked?
I think it was, I think it was probably Portland 19 or 2019. So.
Yeah. So you were already 35, 36. In 2019?
Yeah.
Oh, no. You were...
Yeah, 33. Yeah. It was probably 33.
Okay.
33. But there's different stages, right? And what I'm describing here, I want to make sure I'm making sense. It's like if you're fighting for your spot, yeah, your training's important. But when you transcend that and you're like a regular in a team, it becomes about the match,
Right.
So, it was about, okay, what do I need to do in this session to make sure that I'm good to go? Maybe sometimes you're under pressure all the last week, right? Let's say you played Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday. Yeah. Your energy's gone mentally. And you're like, you know what? I got nothing to put into this week of training. Tell the coach, hey, I'm like mentally resting a little bit here. I may not be great, but I'll be ready on Saturday.
Okay.
Because if you burn all that energy, let's say you played a 3-game week and you come out Tuesday and then you put yourself under pressure again, you're going to be exhausted for the match on Saturday mentally. Yeah. So those are the things that like I'm kind of discussing.
Yeah. Do you think that we are so far removed from the pro game that doesn't click? Because when I was at the Flash, it was nice because we would coach the youth teams, and then they would see Sam Mewis walk by in the halls, or before I got there, Carly Lloyd or Alex Morgan would walk through those halls and go and train. And you get to see these pros all the time, whereas the American player, the American youth player, is so far removed, unless you're in an MLS Academy.
Well, so you could look at it that way, but you could also look at it like, okay, so how much has it grown since I was at Vardar, right? So you have real professional coaches with the Jags, with our homegrown team, and our academy teams. These are real smart, good coaches. Okay, so I mean, I would say you could say, oh, do we not have the Jags not have a USL team that we could look up to? Sure, they don't, right? But you could also say, well, look how far it's come with the level of performance and the level of analysts and just how many more sessions and how much more professional it is than when I was coming through.
Right. Analysts, like how much, as a pro, how much film of yourself did you watch?
I watched a lot, yeah. The other team too.
Yeah.
It was kind of like a ritual. I would just like download the game. I tried to get it on the plane home. We had private flights, so I would just like get it right from our video analyst, and like he would put it on my computer. And maybe depending on the game, if I could rest or if I wanted to see something, I'd just rewatch it. It was kind of like cathartic in some ways.
Or some moments that you wanted to just see.
And then I became really interested in studying tactics, so I would like study a lot of film,
of the opponent coming in.
Or anyone, just if I found a team I thought was interesting, I'd watch them, download games, so I've studied the game in that way a lot. So I think it's really important. I introduced a lot of that with my 19s, just saying, look, like this is kind of what to expect, like analysts on film, and it's a great way to teach, I think, especially with the time constraints that you have, right, with youth sports, to say, hey, like this is going on. I think it's great for goalkeepers too, just to like, let's look at this play, let's analyze that.
Yeah.
So I mean, in a perfect world, the Jags would, have a facility and we would host them. They'd go to school there and then they would come to us.
Did you pattern yourself, or did you watch film of any other goalkeepers?
And
be like,
for sure.
I want to add this to my game.
For sure, it's vital. Like, so any goalkeeper should be like, okay, this is who I play. Like, this is who I want to play. Like, study their game. Yeah. So for me, it was Hugo Lloris, it was David De Gea, it was Jan Sommer. So, and I would just like watch their saves and like watch, repeatedly watch how they played, watch their angles. It was funny. I was playing against Hugo Lloris at LAFC, and I studied him pretty like intensely. And as you can say, I when I say I study, so it was like when I say I studied Hugo Lloris, I did a lot. And so I saw him after the game, and we beat him, and I said, Hugo, man, you're probably like one of 3 or 4 goalkeepers I've studied. Meanwhile, I just beat up the LAFC, played great, and he's like all bummed out. And so it's bizarre. I'm telling him I studied him, and I'm playing against him, and he's like, yeah, okay, man. He just walked away. I'm like, okay. He like could care less. He just was like, okay, dude, I've heard it all before. Like, F off, like not in a bad way. But he just lost. Like, I don't take that as a character indictment of him, but he could care less. You know, I mean, he's Hugo Lloris, and I'm an American guy. Although I did bust him up in that game, but I think they got me back. They've gotten me back plenty of times.
I mean, your career. You started out backpacking through Europe.
Yes.
To get your first contract. When did you know that you wanted to be a pro, first of all? Did that hit in college, or did you have that in high school?
Yeah, high school for sure. So, okay, I've always been kind of like a system, like kind of a pressure tester, system thinker. Like my intelligence has always been like, ooh, let's like figure this out. An example of that is, I was in middle school. I was like, I wasn't that serious into soccer yet. And I was like, I want to run track. And but I'm not a good runner. So I ran a 400, and I went to the coach. I'm like, I'm not good at long distance. And the coach was like, that's a sprint. And she was like, awesome teacher, Mrs. Swick, if you're listening. She was like, maybe go do hurdles. So I'm like, okay. So I did hurdles. Well, to be a good hurdler, the first step is to 3-step. It's called 3-step. You do 3 steps and over. That means you always lead with your left foot. So at night, I would just ride my bike up to the track and like learned how to 3-step. And I made the league meet. So the reason I bring that up is because I always had this idea of like, okay, what are the steps to get something done? And so at 14 or 15, I was like, okay, I want to be a pro soccer player. Like, what are those steps? Okay, well, I need to make Vardar. That's like, back then, or home, now it would be homegrown,
Yes.
So I need to get on homegrown. Okay, how do I do that? And it was like, all right, let's just back. Then you set that goal and you back step until you're in your current spot.
Reverse engineer it.
Yes, every time.
Yeah. I mean, we kind of came up, the goalkeeper trainer didn't exist.
Yes. I was lucky. I had one guy named Dan Dre, who's still around. What's up, Dan? He's there was one guy who would run out of Soccer Zone Lansing that we could get into some sessions for. But I mean, like, there was not a lot of access, there wasn't a lot of help. There was not a lot of money to go around. It was like, it was a different time,
It was self-taught.
Yes.
And a lot of film back then.
Yes.
Watching Oliver Kahn and stuff like that.
Oh,
in
dude,
2002.
I remember I had one VHS from a friend on my team whose dad taped it of a Champions League game. We used to put it on. It was one game.
Yeah, one game.
I'd like watch how the goalies hit the ball. You old school internet, you would Google goalkeeper. There was one site or two sites, and you'd like get a picture of a guy making a save.
Yeah.
And, like, print it out.
Uh-huh.
So, but again, I think you just touched on in preparing for this podcast. I was like, I always like do podcasts. I'm like, I want to make sure I hit on things that I think are important to talk about. And you said something. It's like this self-taught thing, right? And that, like, when I look back at my story, it's like, oh, people ask me, Steve, like, how'd you do it? You're a walk-on, like you said, and it's like, I just took it on myself to say, okay, how do I get better at goalkeeping? And so now we have kids going to all these great, more professional settings, and there's goalkeeping training, and there's NLT, which is really awesome, and there's all these things. There's strength coaches now. But within that process, even though you're going to the things, players need to say, okay, I'm my architect of my career. I'm responsible. How do I get better?
Yeah.
So you need to be that's why I tell my players, you need to be your own coach. It's like, you want me to tell you, okay, I can help you, but what do you think you need to get better at?
It's almost like kids these days, I sound like an old man, but it's like kids these days, they only rely on the club to develop them or whatever is adult-led, and it's not so much the self-taught, the junkies that are watching every game under the sun.
Well, I think there's only, the path that we're talking about, it's like maybe it's been called like the path to mastery, right? So you can call it mastery of something. Like, there's not everyone is going to get on the path to mastery in soccer, right? I chose that, or it chose me, however you want, if you want to be more philosophical about it. So just because we have all these like really wonderful, the Jags have all these opportunities for players, there's probably only a few who are really going to take up that mastery path that will go pro and really take it to that way. But when somebody asks me that and says, okay, well, how do I do it? Well, okay, yeah, you can go to the goalkeeping sessions and you go to the homegrown, but really it's the path of mastery. And that is like being the architect for your game. And, you can't have 10, every Jags player is not going to go pro. Okay. It's just, there's the reality. There's maybe, one in the stable of all the Jags players in this, and all of them right now maybe go pro. So but that's the path is mastery.
Hopefully all of your players are watching this, but they probably hear this message every day from you.
Yeah, it's a great question. How do I answer that? They do, again, yeah, it's like, I guess the way that I look at it is that it's like, we have a culture, right? The Jags have a culture in this office. You have a culture in your podcast. Like, you've set up your culture here. It's nice and free flowing. You have a culture. There's a culture at McDonald's. There's a culture everywhere. Your house has a culture, right? So the culture is like that I want to set with my teams is that the culture is like, look, I take it very serious. These kids look at me in their ID sessions with their parents, sometimes would not, and they say, I want to go to MLS Academy, or I want to go play college in the Big Ten. I take that very literal and very serious. Okay, are you sure you want that? Yes, you want it. Okay, well then my culture when you step into my team is we're going to be great at whatever we do. I'm going to hold you to a high standard, and if that standard drops, I'm going to tell you repeatedly, and I'm going to encourage you, but I'm going to say this is what I believe. It's a blueprint. I can't make you do it, but when you show up here, you're going to follow my blueprint to that success.
I have so many questions. I just have so many questions because I know your career, pretty well because you went to goalkeeper U and whatnot.
Oh yeah, goalkeeper U, baby.
You and then Hildebrandt came right after
Mitch,
you.
Just a good buddy, just awesome guy. Oh, what a player. Jeff Weesey, Josh Slaughter, Sean Lewis, who's still playing.
Yeah.
Missing some guys, but we just had a really long lineage, and I think it really started with Eric, but I think there's goalkeepers more I'm missing. So Jeff Sheehy probably in the Oakland,
yeah.
But Jeff Weesey was an amazing, and I got there and I just was like obsessed with him. I was like, what does he do? How does he do it? I just copied him. Everything he did, I was like his mini-me.
Right.
It was until I eclipsed him his senior year, which is kind of sad, but.
Do you think back then you knew like you looked up to a guy like that,
Yeah.
and you knew kind of the pecking order? Like you knew like I'm a year away or 2 years away, or did you go in right away being like, I can play over that guy?
Well, so
And this can go into your pro career as well.
So no, I mean, I went in being like, I'm not that guy, and I want to be that guy. I went in my first week was like, oh, okay, I'm not this guy. I'm gonna be this guy, and then
Right.
it was clear, like my athletic base in my mind, I could become very, very good.
Right. How? Okay, when you got to Europe and you're backpacking, I had a player in Buffalo that kind of did that same thing. He was like homeless. He was like living on a park bench, just trying to get a trial. Can you go into like that and like how hard it is to break through and how lonely that can be?
Sure. So I went to Charleston Battery and I was there, and I just was like in the setting. I had performed so well in training.
They were USL at that
USL,
time?
yep,
Okay.
the old school USL. Vancouver Whitecaps, Portland Timbers were in the league. It was a good league because these teams were going. They were bigger clubs. So I was like, this isn't for me. Like I just really had this feeling like that I needed new eyes on me. You know, I just needed somebody to look at me like without the lens of, oh, this is Steve Clark, Oakland player, didn't make it. You know, wasn't playing professionally, and so I was like, okay, I have to go to Europe. Then I had a friend at Bradford City that used to come to the Oakland camps. We used to, and I just called him and was like, hey, can I come over? Like, do you think I could train with Bradford City? I don't know how I got in the door, but I did. So I flew to England with a hiker's backpack. It was funny. I brought hiking boots because you thought you hiked. It's ridiculous. Not, you just had hiking boots.
Like tennis shoes.
It's like you didn't know. I didn't know. I didn't know.
That's
so
awesome.
I literally had a hiker's back in hiking boots. Like, what am I doing? I'm stomping around England. It's so funny. These Bradford City players were killing my shoes. They're like, what are these, man? So I got there and they let me in. And I'll never forget it. The first day I was so nervous I forgot my cleats. And the ground at Bradford City is historic. There used to be a Premier League team, and I'm like knocking on this door in the middle of the street, and I'm like, what am I doing here, man? And I got in and I trained. And I did really well. I performed really well. And that was like the first time when I was like, dude, this is going to happen for me. I was like, I'm beating these guys up. Like, and the coach was like, they were really impressed with me. And then I saw the number one kind of being like, who are you? And it's so funny. And you go into a pro environment, the first thing I ask, hey, how you doing, mate? Everyone shake your hands. And then they'll say, how old are you and what position do you play? Because they're like, is he coming for my spot? I was like, I would always preface it. I'm just here training. I don't have Well, I'm sitting around on Friday night. I trained all week, and it's Friday night, and I get a call at the hotel. I didn't have a cell phone. I get a call at the hotel. It was a smaller hotel in Bradford, England. I get a knock on the door. Stuart McCall, which is a famous Scottish player, he's on the phone for you. I'm like, it's the receptionist. I'm like, what? I'm like, okay. I go up to the front desk. I grab the phone. I say, hey, where are you? The bus is leaving. I'm like, what? I'm like, I'm at the hotel. Like, I don't know if anybody told you. Like, I don't have I can't play here.
Right. You
Like,
don't have the
I don't,
passport.
and
you
I
don't have
work permit, and or maybe I shouldn't have said that. Maybe I should just went and played. And he's like, what? He just hung up. I'm like, so that the weekend goes by. And I'm like, and so after that, like, they let me train, but they kind of was like, the coach kind of like soured a little bit, but I got what I needed out of it, because all I needed from that trip was to be able to fly to Norway and was like, hey, I've been training with Bradford City, right? So that they'll pick up the phone and be like, oh, this guy's been training with in England. Let's see him in training.
Right.
So I flew to Norway for the new year. I had some really close friends who played at Oakland who hosted me, Andre and Martin, and their families. It was awesome. So we were around there. And so New Year hits, and then the first second of the year, teams start training. We just start getting on the phones, and like calling people, asking people to call for me. I'm calling anyone. It was kind of like that nerve-wracking time, because you're like, is this going to happen? Like, I'm over here, I'm running out of money. Finally, somebody picks up. They're like, yeah, we have an injury. Like, bring him in. Well, this was a big club at the time, Stabæk, still a Premier League club over there, Tippeliga club. They were in the Europa League at the time. They were playing in a Telenor Arena, which is like an indoor massive arena, like a big club. It was like a proper club. And I'm in training. I'm like, wow, this is crazy. That's when I do the beep test I mentioned. And I'm balling. I'm playing well, and they have a number one. I'm like doing a good job of like keeping the pecking order, as you said. Like, I'm just here to train, keep you staying humble.
Right.
Then they, about a week and a half later, they're like, all right. The goalkeeper coach, who really liked me, was like, hey, I think they're going to sign you, dude. Go take your medical. So I take my medical. And at that point, I was like, as I got older, but I was pretty athletic when I was 23. I was like, I could run. And the strength guy was like, whoa. I was like looking at my numbers, my jumping numbers, and I go up to the office of the general manager. I don't know what they call daily leader. They called him in Norway, and I walk in, his face is like white, and I'm like, oh no, like it felt. I'm like, this is bad. I'm like, oh man. I sit down. He's like, hey, the player that we were trying to loan out to sign you, to open up a spot for you, turned down the loan, and we can't sign you. And I was just like, I couldn't believe it. It was like all that I've worked for, right? It was gone. I was just like in shock. I didn't say anything, and usually I'm pretty reserved, but I was just kind of like, the guy looked, he was like, I'm sorry, and it was like this moment where I was like, oh my god, like, this is like, I was like running out of money, and like they gave me a free hotel, which was big because like I was paying for every night, and they were giving me a free hotel, and it was like they were also like, yeah, look, kind of got to check out of the hotel too. We'll give you like one more day. I'm like, oh man. So I remember going back to my hotel room at that moment. This is kind of a pivotal moment where I was like, all right, what am I gonna do? Like, do I give up? And then I called my buddy, and he was like, dude, let's not give up. Like, just come over to my place. And this is a true story. And it was like really cold in Norway that day. And we had some whiskey, and we're like, oh, we can't give up. And my buddy's so cool. And he had a couple friends, and they're all in on it. And they're like, if Stopik wanted you, you're in the Europa League, like we can find you a team. And then we're like, okay, well, who did this kid turn down the loan to? They need a goalie. Let's just call them. And we're like, we figured it out. It's this team. And I'll never forget, my buddy's calling him, speaking to him in Norwegian, because they got a hold of the coach. And we're like, this is Steve. He was there. Stopik wanted him. You were trying to get this guy. Well, he's available. And they hung up, and I'm like, it's silent in the room. He's like, they want to see you on trial tomorrow. And I'm like, well, I can't go tomorrow. We're like we're half a bottle of whiskey. Like tell them Friday. So I ended up taking the bus there, and I signed 3 days later. And then that was it.
Unbelievable.
But it's amazing. I mean, I'm like telling him, like, man, I lived it. It was cool. So.
When you were at Bradford, was it a huge jump up from from Charleston Battery? That like it took you a little while? To
yeah, it's a good question. No, but the fields were bad. It was typical English, right? The players were better, but like the fields were bad, and like.
And was this winter? Was this like
it was winter?
Like January, February.
It was winter. Actually, the goalkeeper coach was former England #1. I forget his name at the time. Nice guy, man. It was really good to me. I should probably remember his name because he was a legend. He was behind Seaman. It was behind Seaman the whole time. Everton goalkeeper Tim Howard took over for him.
Okay.
I'll Google it in a second, but no. But this is the thing that what I was trying to get at, and this parallels what I was saying about goalkeeping. You could go and train and look good, but then if you would have thrown me in a match for Bradford City, I would have been way out of my league because I was out of my league in the Tipper League. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you can go look good. That's like why this gap happens. Like, oh, they signed this player, and then he goes and try. Everybody cannot make it in the game. It's like every goalkeeper who goes through this process we're talking about, they get their shot. It's sink or swim. Some guys have it, some guys don't. Some guys are lucky enough to get another shot, and then they can maintain and understand the pressure and like learn the game. You essentially, what I'm trying to say is like I had to relearn goalkeeping as a pro because it was different, you know, in my mind.
What's it like being have you been a 3? Have you been a 2 and then a 1 all in the same club, or not really?
I haven't, and I'll tell you. Well,
I'd like to know what the difference is of that.
So I got to. I went on trial before I went to Norway and England. I was on trial with Salt Lake. Jeff Cassar. Do you know Jeff Cassar? A Michigan guy. I was playing really well, and Nick Raimondo was the goalkeeper. They also had Chris Seitz at the time, who was like supposed to be the guy in American soccer. And I came in, and I'm like, guns blazing. I'm like, I don't care about these guys. I don't care about anyone. I was like really confident and really brash, and it really wasn't a good look. And they just, I played so well, and about a month in, they just emailed my agent like, sorry, he's not a 3. We can't take him because I wasn't a 3. Okay, I was a #1, and they were like, we can't have this guy in as a 3 who thinks he's a #1.
How old were you at this time?
I was 22. Yeah. And like that's not that great a reflection on me. Like, you should know your place on a team. But I at that point in my career, I was like, I don't care. I'm going to be a #1, and I don't Nick Raimondo or whoever. Like, I'm here to battle.
No, but it's self-belief.
It is,
and it's confidence.
Right.
That it's not arrogance. It's not cockiness. It's confidence. And that's what you want in a goalkeeper.
Well,
why wouldn't you?
Well, it's what I needed to. Yes. But I mean, look, you got to be a good teammate. And I think look back at some of that time, like there was things I did where like I probably wasn't knowing my place. But again, I didn't really care because I was like, look, I'm gonna be a star. And I told Jeff Cassar when they let me go in Charleston, I just said, look, Jeff, I get it. I'm gonna be a star though, and I walked away. And I still love Jeff to this day, but I just knew where I was headed. And I think sometimes I rub people the wrong way because I'm kind of blunt, and I said that, look, Jeff, I'm gonna be a star. Thanks, man. And I was. So.
Did you always have that confidence? Or was it developed once you put some pelts on the wall, I guess you could say?
Yeah. I mean, it was probably fake it till you make it. I wasn't sure, but I was like going to portray this character to almost make myself believe, And so there's this, I was thinking about my U19 goalkeepers, and what I would say to them is like, we had this senior banquet, and I wanted to speak about each one of my players individually because I thought they deserved that, but we didn't have enough time. We can't. But I was
there's 10 teams or 15 teams to go through, yeah.
For sure. But I was telling my goalkeepers, it's like goalkeeping is about all these wonderful things, right? It's playing with your feet. It's catching crosses. It's such a dynamic position. It's free flowing. You have to be good at so many things. It's like the decathlon of positions. You have to be so good at all these things. And
you have to be a soccer player that can use their hands.
Yeah. And you have to train them all. But there's another part about goalkeeping where you can't separate. There's only one player that wears the shirt. And it's two guys enter a room and one guy comes out. And it's just the reality, and that's how I took to goalkeeping. And when I went to a team, it was like, look, we might not have a great relationship or whatever. There's a goalkeeper union here, but like this is for me and this is what I'm doing. I'm not letting anything get in that way. It doesn't have to be that way. Again, I think I lost some relationships over that, and I was maybe difficult to manage, but that's how I did it. There's other ways to do it, but you can't separate what goalkeeping is at that level.
And it's true to who you are. Did you ever, later on in your career, did a younger goalkeeper come in to be the 2 or the 3 or to take your spot?
Sure.
And they didn't have that? And you're like, this kid's not going to make it. Or did you feel like, whoa, this kid's just like me. He's going to be a star?
Well, I think
you don't have to name names.
No, but I think there's ways. There's other you can be very calm and do the job. I just did it in a different way where I was like very high. I was high strung to do the job. So I think you need presence. Okay. It could be, and presence can follow. You're just a quiet guy that makes every save in the world. That's presence. Okay. But you need presence to be a number one, and that I took my presence as a leader, vocal leader. I was very intelligent. I would compete. I took my presence was in training. It's like, look, my team's going to beat your team and I'm going to make sure this training is intense. I'm going to just wind everyone up to say we're winning this 5v5 game. Yeah. And then there's some guys who just are calm, which is probably what coaches prefer, I think. But, they just make every save in the book, and then that's your presence. So there's different ways to do it as long as you have presence.
How, when you said you watched De Gea a lot and Hugo, how much did you ever find a weakness like in your distribution or your feet? Or just with the ball at your feet, maybe your weak foot, or like being able to ping a ball with both feet and stuff like that. Like, so how did you go into that? Is it the same thing as the hurdles? Just like, okay,
let's fix it. Well, the one thing I could never fix was like getting an extra 15 yards on my long ball. I just couldn't kick the ball that far. I was average. But I just couldn't. Like some guys can just pound it, and it becomes a super valuable asset. In fact, if I would have been 15 extra yards on my long ball, no one would have ever been able to press me because I was very good at intermediate passes, slipping, reading pressure. But teams could press their center back so high against me because like I couldn't access the backspace.
Right.
Because I tried. I actually kicked so much I got tendonitis in my knee, but it was just something, whatever it was technically. It wasn't strength. It was just technically I just couldn't get that extra 15 yards. And I would always like watch guys and be like, what? And talk to them after the game, like, dude, you kick it so far. Because there's a bit of a professionalism between goalkeepers. You kind of like root for each other, and I'm just like, dude, how do you kick it so far?
It's not a cult. It's kind of like a cult.
I mean, you're in a club, right?
Exactly.
You want to be part of the club.
So throughout your career, the game kind of changed. Where you were going long, you were punting.
Sure.
Goal kicks would go deep. Now, obviously, we're building out of the back.
Sure.
The goal kick rules have changed and everything. Was that a hard switch for you, or was that pretty
I always tell goalkeepers, like, look, like, develop your feet, because you never know when a coach is going to want a goalkeeper with good feet. They don't always want it, but if you have it, it's good to have
plus.
it. So when I was playing in Norway, so my first year there, we relegated. I didn't play. My second year there, we promoted. I won the starting spot. And then I had a very fun young coach, great coach, really had us working for a while. And then we promoted. I went to the Tippeligaen, and I basically kind of like won one of there was a couple goalkeepers the year, and I won one, you know. And in that year, after that, our coach was kind of like, look, I need you to be better with your feet, because it wasn't a strength. And I just like started drilling it. And then I got pretty obsessed with it. And then by the time I was leaving that club, Greg Berhalter called me and was like, what type of goalkeeper are you? Like, I don't know if you've never met Greg. He just asked you a question like, hey, he always asks questions like, what type of goal? And I was like, well, this type of goal. He's like, that's what I'm looking for. And he's like, I'll watch your film. I'll call you back. And, you know, then I got signed because he wanted a goalkeeper like there was good with his feet.
Yeah.
And so that really changed the trajectory of my career.
Whenever I get a message from a goalkeeper, because after my time with the Flash, I haven't done goalkeeping stuff because I kind of got burnt out of being the goalkeeper trainer. And I didn't want that, I guess that definition of myself of, oh, he's just a goalkeeper guy. And now I've hung out with like Jeff Shuck, if you know him, and now talking to you, and then Stan Anderson from
I know Stan
from Camp Shutout, and it's gotten me back into like I kind of miss goalkeeping.
Yeah,
you know,
it's good. You needed a break.
Yeah, and I'm coming back, but whenever somebody's in a goalkeeping battle, I always say, if everything is equal, if your shot stopping capability, if your communication, if your positioning is on point and equal, they're going to take the guy who has the better feet.
Of course.
Who's more two-footed.
Of course.
And, I mean, yeah. So, the transition from, when did you know that, you know what, I've ran my race, it's time, to retire, and then go into what made you want to get into coaching? Because not everybody does.
No, everyone does. So, I mean, I've been studying coaching for a long time. Like, I've been studying tactics. So, I knew that I wanted to.
Because you're a student of the game.
I mean, I take it. I liked it. I like it. I like studying. You know.
Do you think that's a goalkeeper thing? I feel like goalkeepers study the game way more than your average field player.
I mean, I think there's a lot of some players like don't watch it at all. They just are naturally really good, and some players like really enjoy it. A lot of the goalkeepers, I mean, I do, because again, I think you have small margins, so people tend to dig in and enjoy it. But it's an interesting question. So obviously, like, I knew my time was up when no one signed me. Okay, you know what I mean? Like, that was last January. The writing was on the wall. Houston let me go, and then some contracts fell through, and it was like, okay, like, I'm probably just not going to get another contract. I'm 39 years old. Physically, you talked about pounding on your body. Like, I was just really lucky, and I took good care of my body, and I was fine. You know, in fact, I signed, like, kind of committed with Pete with the Jags in Miami. Called my agent, was like, hey, we're thinking of Steve and one other guy to sign. And I'm like, I can't really turn down playing with Messi net last summer, but I'm like, I don't necessarily really want to, like, go. You know, it was like, it would have been a tough choice, but they didn't call. But there was a point in that season, my last season, again, when I was 38, and I was playing. I remember we were at an away game, and I liked playing away. I kind of liked the travel. I liked, it's just something special. You like roll into an opponent's environment. You know, in the pro game, home and away is such a big deal. Like, you just go away, you feel like you're just like, it's so hard to win. Mm-hmm. It's very different than the youth game and even college. Like, in the pros, it's just so hard to win away. You know, the opponent's fans and the psychological injection of, power that you get from playing at home team. Home teams just like are so difficult to beat. I used to love that. And you would just get into a game where, in a big game, a lot of pressure, my mouth would go dry. It would just like go dry, like from nerves and like pressure. And, I used to I just like liked it. It was like, you got a taste for the blood in the water. You know what I mean? That's one of the things that I just love. And I remember playing this game, and I was just like looking up. We won in the last minute. I made like a huge save. It was like probably going to be like, team of the week type performance. Just like walked off the field. It's like I had enough, I'd done it so many times, 400 times, that it didn't move the dial enough. And that's when I was kind of like, oh shoot. Like, this I'm getting close, And then at home, and then it's funny, man. And then all those plane rides, you'd be on a private flight, you'd be laying down, and those whole plane rides, I would just be like, think about my career, like what I was going to say when I retired. And I was still playing. I was like, still playing, I'm playing. But I was like, something in me knew that it was close. You know what I'm saying, man?
Yeah.
It was like, I kind of felt like this is getting close to the end without really acknowledging it.
Yeah. Why Michigan? Why come home?
Well, I mean, because, it's funny. I've been talking about this is like, somebody asked me like, oh, we don't see you in the Jags office. And I'm like, dude, I'm just learning how to like be a normal adult, because I played for so long. Like I knew how to show up to training and be a really good soccer player. But it's like, you don't know what to do. What do? You played for 20 years, you played for 20 years almost. And you're like, well, where do you go? My wife and I, like, what do you do?
Did you feel like that during the off season in the middle of your career?
No.
Like you went back to air quotes.
I trained through every
normal?
offseason. I trained
Just
through
trained,
I trained through.
trained.
And it's one of
It's
the
a
reasons
365 athlete.
I just like loved it, dude. I would go to work, I'd come home. It was like a rhythm to my life. I loved it. And that's one of the reasons, I'll tell you right now, it's one of the reasons I got better into my career. And I had, it was like top 10 or almost top 5 all time in MLS in almost every category because I trained.
How many appearances did you have in the MLS?
It was close to 300.
And 100 in Europe.
Over 100, yeah.
Yeah.
But I again, like I took apart my game. I mean, we could talk about. I got so much to say. Okay, so I don't know how much time we have. How much time do we have here?
I have all day.
Yeah, you have all day. Okay. One fascinating thing, just from a goalkeeping standpoint, is that I kind of got to this point, and I think it's an interesting thing, just what we're talking about for youth players. Like, so I left. I went to Columbus, performed really well. I left in 2016. They denied my option. I got expensive. Needed to change. I didn't get picked up in the MLS. Okay, so I went to Europe. I went to Denmark, played, came, and I didn't love the way I was playing. Like I didn't feel good about my game. Went to DC, didn't feel good about my game, and I eventually, so in one off season, I just was like, look, like where I'm headed in my game is like not good. It was like alarm bells are going off. I just didn't like my angles. I didn't like the way I was getting scored. I couldn't save certain shots. So I took a month and looked at every game I'd played and where I played in Norway and how I played angles. And I studied that. And then I came home with Sean Lewis, who's now playing in USL 2 or USL 1. And we trained twice a day, sometimes once a day at Ultimate, now defunct.
Yeah.
And I had guys coming out and shooting on me. And we videoed every session. I rewatch it, and I changed the way I played in an off season in 4 or 5 weeks.
What did you find?
I found that I needed to play lower in the goal. I was playing too high in my angles.
Off your line?
Just every angle I was playing, I was too high. I needed time to use I needed time, and I was not giving myself by coming higher. You saw it in Tim Howard when he got late into his career. His angles got higher and higher and higher. It's just an effort to make the save that's sometimes counterintuitive. And if you see somebody who's getting really high in their angles, like that's bad. Like goalkeeping is sometimes lower is more aggressive, and that's an oxymoron to what we teach at times. Mm-hmm. Lower angles is actually more aggressive. So I took my angles and I dropped them back in the goal, and it really gave me more time to see the field, save crosses, and it changed the trajectory. I went on to Portland and go to an MLS Cup, won the MLS back, won an Open Cup. Like it changed my whole career.
And that was 2016 when you kind of
2017.
2017.
No, off season of 2017.
Okay. Have you talk about the league in terms of what it was like in 2016, 2015?
Sure.
Compared to now, and how much I feel healthier the league is?
Sure.
Or is that just me being an outsider and it's always been the same?
Well, so there's just more money. You're going to get better players.
Exactly.
You're just going to get better players.
That's what it is.
The league was what I left was a lot better than the league that I started in 2014, and the rosters are deeper. There's better players. I mean, think about it now. You had one guy where they probably have 6 or 7 on every roster that would have been a DP. It's just a lot of money in the league. So it's a lot of foreign players. Americans are having a harder time to compete.
What do you think? Do you think that it will ever be a time when all the best Americans come back and are in the league from 22 on, even in their prime? Or is the Champions League always and the EPL always going to be the goal?
I think it will always be,
Did you ever have that goal of going?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that's why. I'll tell you what. I think that's why. That's my hypothesis. Why players, I think, sometimes like fade in their elder career because they realize maybe they won't make the national team or they won't go to the Champions League. It's like you lose that motivation, because it's like you realize you maybe have topped out. So it's as an athlete who makes it that far, you're always, like I said, looking ahead, like, oh, I'm just 1 year away from making this next contract, and sometimes you're like, maybe I'm not gonna make that. This is all I'm gonna be.
And I'm sure that once, let's say you don't get a national team call up,
sure,
and I'm sure that can wear on somebody that's made a life off of this, and dedicated their life around it. I mean, that can't be easy, especially on the women's side when it's like young kids.
Yeah.
It's like 17, 18, 19-year-olds.
It's big on the women's side, yeah.
And
you need to learn how to deal with, if you want to be a pro athlete, you just need to get really comfortable with failure because it's part of life. Man.
How do you do that? Because think about the roller coaster just goalkeepers go through.
Sure.
You have to have short-term memory loss because you can make the best save of your life and follow it up and give up a howler.
Well, I think everyone's different. I can say for me, I would get really down, but I just had this ability after 2 days just come back. I just would pop up. I just wouldn't quit. I would just renew my optimism somehow. And, I'd just be so down if I didn't perform, and it could last anywhere from a day or two. And then I would just something would click and be like, no, dude, I'm coming back to the plate. I don't care. I'm going back. I want to be great, instead of just wallowing in that failure, you just deal with it. You move on. And I think some of it is socioeconomic too. I was from a smaller town, and it was I felt like soccer was a way out. I had a good family. I was raised middle class, but it was like this or what? What am I going to do? I didn't know what I was going to do. I was going to be a soccer player. That was my only plan. Yeah. So, that's how I dealt with it. It was there was no other option for me. Uh-huh. That's why I probably did what I could do. But
what's your thoughts on the future and what you want to do in terms of? I know you're coaching Jags and MLSNext.
Yeah.
Any thought of getting into the goalkeeping game of coaching?
It's a goalkeeping game. I know. It's an interesting.
I'm sure you get asked all the time.
Well, I like talking about goalkeeping, and you can tell, I'm passionate about it. I talk about,
of course,
I tell these stories. But
does that mean that you want to train it?
Yeah,
not necessarily.
Yeah, and like you said, it's a particular thing. Coaching goalkeepers, it can be a grind, and you got to love it, and I definitely have knowledge about goalkeeping I want to pass on. I'll say that. I think it would be selfish for me not to try to pass on some of the stuff that I learned that I thought made me successful. Uh-huh. But as far as doing it as a career, I don't have any interest in that.
Right.
I'm more interested in being a manager and other things.
Yeah. So this is your first year in the MLSNext.
Yes.
And were you around any of the youth at all your stops in Europe and here? Were you around the youth a lot? Youth academies?
I've always naturally even when I was playing, I would touch base with the 19s or the second team, and I liked younger players and talking with them. So I enjoy that, mentoring young soccer players. That's something I enjoy. But I know I would check in on trainings, but the hard part is you're trying to perform, so it's you don't have tons of time to go sit out at a field at 3:00.
Right.
And so there wasn't this, because when you're a pro, everyone's like, oh, you got to know what you're doing next. And yeah, but you need to perform. So you kind of got to be where your feet are.
Yeah. And go more into the transition. I feel goalkeepers usually make a lot better coaches. But I'm biased.
You're biased, yeah.
But I just feel we see the entire field. And we're used to seeing the game behind everything and seeing the movements, seeing, the width and the depth of everything. Whereas maybe if you're a center mid, you don't see all the width and the depth necessarily.
Well, there's part of that. So essentially, I didn't get a contract. It was pretty clear. The writing's on the wall. Hey, to my wife, what do you want to do? So I moved back to Michigan. I got actually Luis Robles connected me with Pete. So I was shadowing, I was in Chicago's environment, the Chicago Fire, shadowing, Greg, had some opportunities in their academy, and it was just like didn't feel necessarily right. Like my wife wanted to be here. We gave a lot of energy to my career. It's like, let's go home for a little while.
Is she from Michigan?
Yeah, she is as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we moved back here. Luis connected with P. The Jags values are similar to mine, and when I left, the Jags were a small club, right? And since I played, basically they just have grown. I mean, everyone's talking about the Jags. I'm like the Novi Jags? Like, what are you talking about?
Exactly. Yeah. You just remember the tournament, like Mother's Day weekend or whatever.
Whatever. And you're like, and I remember being like, someone mentioned the Jags, like, what? And they'd be like, yeah, the Jags are like a big club. They're doing things the right way. And I'd be like, oh, cool. Like, but in my mind, it wasn't like, oh, they're going to start competing with Vardar Wolves, right?
Right.
Obviously, that's happening. So I met Pete, and it was like, okay, like, when you say, oh, I want to think about what it would mean to train to be a professional coach, there's all these ways you could do it. And it's like, okay, cool. Like, this would be really fun to learn, to coach with the Jags. And, it's been just an incredible learning environment for me, learning how to coach. And, there's so many restraints that this level has, right? So kids are showing up and sometimes they don't show. You got seniors in high school and they're just like, oh, I'm not coming today. So your numbers in the training game gets, you don't know who you have.
You have to
small fields in the winter because fields are expensive. So, that part of it's been challenging, frustrating, but also a hyper learning environment. I think like I said, I've studied the game pretty extensively, but when you're in it, you start to learn different things and learn how to train. That part's been super fun.
Yeah.
Changed the way that I thought about training, and you essentially realize before you get into something, just because you played, it's a different profession, right?
Right.
No crap, but it's like you learn that, get your hands dirty, basically.
Yeah. What do you think? Like, what is the pathway to be a manager? Like, I think
for sure.
I think it's important to be involved in the youth game to start, for sure.
I think so too.
Because if you're the manager of, let's say, Peter Vermees, who was just here, right?
Yep.
Peter Vermees, he had his fingerprints all over, up and down SKC. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he did. Yep.
The youth academy and how they played and everything. And I feel that if you want to be a manager, you need to know the youth side of everything. Or
I agree, and I think,
do you think that it's just like
no? I think it's super important, but also the part about being in the youth game is experimentation. You get to I call it free failure. When you're in the pro game, it's not free failure. It's costs you. You get fired. Your reputation gets ruined. So it's like, and not that I'm aiming to fail, but I'm aiming to, like the same way as a goalkeeper, I'm aiming to experiment. I'm trying to figure this out. I want to have a deep understanding of coaching. So you try things, and then you try a training drill. It doesn't work. Well, guess what? It's like, it's a little different when you're here. You're, at a professional academy, or you're a MLSNext pro coach. Like, you don't want to fail in your sessions there. You want to fail in this environment.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also, the converse of that is you really get a deep understanding of what works. I can tell you now, definitively, after 9 months in this game, I can tell you, definitively how I change behavior when what drills do that. That's a real valuable thing. Instead of watching somebody else tell you what they think is behavioral change, I got to learn that for myself. Does that make sense?
Yeah. How, coming up as a player, did you ever take notes from coaching points and stuff like that? From coaches that you kind of want to so we talked about patterning yourself off of goalkeepers. Are there any managers that you had that you want to pattern?
For sure.
Like, I love how their sessions just melded, or their periodization or whatnot.
100%. I think you take I took parts from every manager. This guy did that really good. And
then you learn what not to do sometimes too. Like, I didn't like how
100%. I was going to say that. Well said. Yes, it's very wise. You learn what not to do.
Yeah.
The first part of coaching is don't be a negative coach. By negative coach, I mean negative coaching making your team worse, which happens. I've for sure made mistakes this year with the Jags where it's like, I made my team worse there. Like, that sucks.
Yeah.
So that's the first part of that, and you can learn what not to do. And, there's a great quote about culture which it's like, you can build culture, and culture gets erased by one moment of a coach or the leader of the organization when they show, dishonesty, or they break the culture, and then what's the culture left? Everyone's looking at it like, he didn't follow the culture. Like, what's the culture? It doesn't mean anything.
Wow.
You know, and that's the truth. That's what, like, we have to understand. If you're a leader of a team or a leader of an organization, everybody's watching you. And if you break your culture that you've set, your culture's gone. It just doesn't mean anything. Now, it can hold on with other leaders, right? It can hold on, okay? But that's a crack in your culture. And I love the fact that there's skin in the game as a manager. Like, I like that. I like the genuineness of it. Like, I want to be who I say and say who I am, you know, and be who I am.
Yeah.
And that is something that, you know, I have to make sure when I talk about my teams and my culture, I better be doing it and living what I say.
Did you ever, as a player, I don't want to say fall out of love, because you obviously love the game, but did you ever maybe lose the passion and then something in coaching reignited that passion? Or anything like that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I definitely, like I kind of talked about that game at Minnesota where it was like, I'm kind of losing the passion. Definitely, like, it feels like seeing a different side of the game. It's definitely different than goalkeeping, you know, where, you know, goalkeeping, you're in it, you're playing, you know, you're trying to win, but you're taking care of your own performance. And then coaching, it feels like a longer play where it's like you play well as a goalie and it's like everyone's like, wow, this guy's good. You know, coaching feels like this. There's this like long play of like, you know, it takes, one thing I misunderestimated was how long it takes to change behaviors, you know, and like how long it would take to teach. You know, I thought it would be easier, but it takes longer time. You know, it's more repetition than anticipated.
When you say behaviors, are you talking about how like the individual player approaches their development, or are you talking about behaviors within the game?
Behaviors within the game.
Within the game.
But also that could be behaviors off the field. You know, it's like, you know, look, for example, my 19s, like they're at that age, they bickered a lot, you know, and, you know, they stopped. They've grown into a winning team. You know, they stopped that. It's rare. I'll cut it out, you know. So that's actual behavior change, but like changing the way a player presses. Recognize, like for me, intelligence is so important, like recognizing when a team should press and when not. You know, that to me is so important for my teams. And like to get that collective understanding is more challenging than I thought.
Did that help? I mean, being a goalkeeper helps with that too, of like knowing, think about like when you're being pressed and when you're not being pressed. It's like, why do they drop off? You're kind of like setting in a trap.
Yes. You can feel that. You definitely feel it, like, because you're observing the game and in the game.
Yeah.
Totally you are. Yeah.
How are you on the field in terms of like, because think about as a goalkeeper, you're constantly communicating.
Yeah.
Are you constantly communicating as a coach? Or are you are you having that hard of a transition? Because I know that there's some coaches that want to talk as much as they did on the field, and it's like, yeah, you don't need to talk. You don't need to say as much.
Well, you know what I tried to do is I try to use code words like it's same in training, same in games. Simple. So I try to repeat things, and you know, you watch the film back, and it's like, you know, there's a real culture of coaching of not saying a lot, right? And I don't know if I agree with it. And like, it's pretty clear here that I'm somewhat of a maverick. I'm just going to do what I want to do as far as what I think's right. And so there's this internal war right now. It's like, am I talking too much? Am I not? Like, I'll just repeat code words like shape, simple, you know, or if it's a pressing moment, I will yell out press, you know, trying to help them. Whether or not that's transferable or that's good, I don't know. But I don't know. I think it's important, like when you enter something new, where it's like, you know, like I said, this culture of just coaches just observing, that's fine. It's not me, and it's never going to be me. And, you know, it's always interesting when, again, we're talking about cultures. I walk into a culture, there's this clash because I don't necessarily fit into that box mold there. And I'm not screaming, you know, there's a difference between like, criticizing your players. I never criticize my players in the game. You know, I just give out direction.
Just teach.
But I'm different, you know, and if you watch my trainings, it's feel free to come out. I mean, I'm training like with reinforcement. If something do something well, I'm going to reinforce that. And if they don't, I don't. So I'm constantly wanting my players to want my reinforcement by doing the right thing. Yeah. You know, so if something does well, world class, well, you know, high level. If something does something bad, they're ignored, you know, and then it's just this constant process of feedback instantaneously. That was right moment. Nope, that's a behavior we don't want. That's the right action.
Right.
You know, it's just repeated. You know, good. You know, the principles that I'm playing with. It's just I try to reinforce those constantly.
How are you seeing the difference between like your 15s and your 19s? Like
it's hard. It's hard, and you know, coaching 15-year-olds, like I relate really well to 19s, you know, and 15 age group is been more of a challenge. You know, my superpower is kind of like what I'm doing with you right now. We're connecting, you know, and I'm able to connect and you know, get somebody to buy in. You know, and like maybe I would be a good salesman, but I can't sell anything other than what I would.
Right, and then the 19s are probably locked in because they are all hopefully like going on to college and want what you've had.
Yes, and well, it's just an age thing. It's a maturity thing.
Yeah.
You know, you can look at a 19-year-old and like they're more of an adult. You know, so the challenge, the 15s have been challenged. Like, how do I connect? You know, and you know. Yeah, that's that. Yeah, I mean, that's just a open question.
Yeah.
You know, and you also realize what you're suited for more.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm like, older is probably better for me in some ways, but it's my younger team's a great teacher for sure.
So, I mean, throughout your career, you've taken great care of yourself off the field. How are you helping your players take care of themselves off the field?
Yeah.
Or teach them those things? It's like, hey, man, I had nearly a 20-year professional career.
Well, the main thing that I've noticed is just, again, you forget because I had my food prepared for me. It's just like how much you need to eat. You know, it's like, guys, like, it's not enough just to eat dinner.
Most kids do not eat enough, and most college kids I know don't eat enough.
It's a problem, really understand. That's why I'm kind of like, okay, look, we're eating dinner, we're having a protein shake. In the morning, we're eating breakfast, you're having a smoothie and a protein shake. I don't care if you're not hungry. It's like, you know. And, you know, I don't think I could probably learn that a little bit too late. Where it's like, that fall, I wish I was saying that kind of stuff. Because you're just watching kids performing, like, 19-year-olds perform, and you're just like, dude, this kid just didn't eat enough. He's bonked. You know, he's bonked in the 60th minute. He's got to eat more, you know?
Right.
And I get it. There's restraints. It's just not the same. You're not sitting at a buffet 3.5 hours from the game eating as a team.
Yeah.
You know, that's just the reality. And then you're not having a sports scientist and your nutritionist shove snacks down your throat the whole plane ride and have a sandwich. There's so much food, it's like different, you know?
Yeah. Like you're eating pre-plane, during the plane.
Just so much food.
As soon as you get off the plane.
And I'm a goalie. I'm like gaining weight. I'm like, dude, I can't eat this, you know? Yeah. It's like, and just carbs and like, drinks and.
What's your training schedule like right now with the team?
So we go Monday through Thursday evenings, basically.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday?
So
4 each?
4 each, yeah. I train them.
Good.
So we have 3 with the team, and then there's a Tuesday kind of individual thing I run.
Oh, okay.
So I'm busy. I'm running a lot of. I mean, it's like I said, it's a great teacher for me. I'm running a lot of sessions.
You have Cup coming in this weekend?
Yep, and then we're away at FC United. So
yeah, FC United in Chicago.
Yeah,
got it. Man, dude. It's great to meet you.
Yeah, thanks, man. It's cool. I was gonna say, like, it was kind of a funny. I don't do many of these, but I enjoy it. It's just, I kind of got to this point where I did a lot of interviews in my career. I'm like, I get tired of hearing yourself talk, but it's fun, dude. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I'll maybe next year I'll come on again or something. Do
Absolutely.
Part 2, because there's so many stories I haven't told. Like some just fun MLS stories that we can get into.
Yeah, and I'm trying to get Poggi on too.
Oh, you should, yeah. The legend,
yeah,
dude, the legendary guy.
I mean, but I appreciate it. I mean, what the Jags, I was so impressed by what the Jags are doing. And now there's some, bickering about, they only care about this and they only care about that. It's like, go and see what they actually are doing and how they're structured. And it's way more professional than a lot of clubs, I feel.
Well, I can tell you, they're going about things the right way. And there's always going to be detractors. Look, we have a pay-to-play model, right? And it's just, it has to be funded somehow, unless somebody with a lot of money wants to fund the Jags homegrown or the Jags Academy. It's like,
it's not going to happen.
Right. It's reality, yeah.
I mean, and I don't know. Most of youth sports is about the college,
right? Going
to play in college, whereas overseas, it's not. I mean, the younger players, they all want to be pro, and then when they realize that they're not going to be pro, they either stop playing or they try to find their way to the United States to play in college.
Yes.
And it's just and we don't have promotion and relegation. We don't have money from the top trickling down. We don't have our governments involved in sport where, they can be fully funded or grants and whatnot. And the pay-to-play model is always going to be here. I think about Little Caesars hockey, right? Or Honey Baked.
Honey Baked Ham, that was the old.
That was always the big team. That's a big company, right? Yeah. Those kids that play on those hockey teams, they pay. Yeah. It's not like Little Caesars is paying for those, or the Junior Sabres in Buffalo. Sure. It's not like they're free. Well, we have Junior Sabres, and it's more expensive than soccer. So the pay-to-play model is not going anywhere.
Well, it creates, like, you have to, like, it costs money to hire good coaches. It costs money for fields, right, in Michigan and North, And, then it creates that dynamic where parents are like, hey, I'm paying for this. Like, I expect certain things. And then it's like, then that creates the friction of, okay, well, yeah, but this is the culture we've set, and this is what I've decided as a coach. It's not perfect, but it's better than where I think we're at. And I think the Jags, like, I can tell you this much, like, the Jags is, like, obsessed with, like, getting their players to college. We're calling college coaches. I mean, a lot of my days are spent, like connecting with college coaches about my players. I want them to go to college. That's why they came to the Jags. That's what we're doing. We try to do right by players. You come here and, you need to go to MLS Academy, and I think you're good enough. I'll call the MLS head coach because I have their number, right? And I'll go to bat for you. I don't even call the academy director. I'll call the head coach of the team because I have their, it's like, so we want to push players on. We want to, like, do the right thing by players. And that's one thing why I related to Pete so much. It's like, he's like, dude, we're doing right by players.
And he was at Philly.
Before that, yeah.
Yeah, and he's going to be on later in the year. But, I mean, the people here, I mean, the staff is just incredible. Yeah. And, like, bringing in guys like you on with your experience and your resume, it's unbelievable.
Well, I think they're, after being here for, like I said, 9 months, you can see why they have grown. It's clear, right? We talk about culture. It's like, the way we go about business the right way. They try to do the right thing. I'm sure there's some detractors here and there, but, like, everyone's attempting to do right by players, create good players, and create a good business that can, continue growing. It's like, yeah, they're doing the right things.
I have something for you, actually. You're not, like, playing anymore?
I played 1-4v4.
But I'm sure you wear, like, cleats and stuff?
Oh, yeah. I wear cleats, yeah.
Okay, well.
When I train.
Well, hold on. So, I got you. So I have a couple sponsors. I have a couple sponsors. Salt bags. Do you know anything about these?
No.
Dude, you wish you had these when they have a glove bag, but this is a cleat bag.
It, like, makes the smell out?
It will block out the smell from any cleats. If you put new cleats in there, your cleats will never smell.
Oh, that's cool.
It's unbelievable. And then grip socks.
Wow.
Grips.
Thank you.
Those are more comfortable than True Socks. If you're a True Socks guy,
okay,
they're way more comfortable. So, like, man, yeah. But that salt bag is unbelievable.
Very cool.
Yeah, and you could still put the gloves on, gloves in there. Steve,
thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, man. And awesome. This will air next week, and
sure,
like, it's awesome, man.
Cool.
I appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks for the time.
Yeah.
I hate soccer.